In 1909, the scale of global industry was defined by the size of its hulls. Building a ship larger than any before it meant coordinating thousands of tons of steel and millions of individual rivets. At the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, nearly 15,000 workers assembled the vessel. The project required a workforce larger than the population of many contemporary cities. The finished ship measured over 880 feet long and 92 feet wide, costing $7.5 million, hundreds of millions today, the most expensive object ever built. The core of its safety design featured 16 watertight compartments, leading to claims the vessel was practically unsinkable. If breached, heavy metal doors closed in 30 seconds, allowing the ship to stay afloat, even if two adjoining compartments completely filled with water. By the time it was ready for service in 1912, the ship was a massive industrial achievement. 3 of its 4 funnels were operational, venting steam from 29 boilers and 159 coal furnaces. This scale and complexity led to a specific psychological outcome. The public and maritime community believed the ship's engineering had neutralized the dangers of the Atlantic. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic departed Southampton for New York. As it left port, the focus moved from the industrial power of the hull to the luxury of the upper decks. First-class passengers had access to a swimming pool, a squash court, and a grand staircase carved from polished oak. These spaces were designed with the same attention to detail as the world's most expensive hotels. Access to this environment was extremely exclusive. A single one-way ticket for the most expensive suites cost $4,350, nearly $100,000 in modern currency. This chart compares the ship's maximum capacity of 3,547 people to the capacity of its safety equipment. The ship carried only 20 lifeboats, providing enough room for just 1,178 passengers. Designers originally proposed 64 lifeboats, but that number was reduced to 16 wooden boats and 4 collapsibles. The decision prioritized open deck space for passengers over the mathematical necessity of a full evacuation. White Star Line owner J. Bruce Ismay traveled on the maiden voyage, reportedly encouraging Captain Edward Smith to maintain a high speed, despite the risks of the North Atlantic. On the night of April 14th, the bridge received 6 separate warnings about ice in the area. However, the crew in the crow's nest lacked binoculars because the key to the equipment locker had been left behind in England, leaving them to spot hazards with the naked eye. Shortly before midnight, the ship was traveling at approximately 40 kilometers per hour. It was moving at nearly full speed into a dark field of ice where the water temperature was 2 degrees below zero. Arrogance, missing equipment, and ignored warning sat combined. By 11:40 p.m., the crew's reaction time was too short to avoid the obstacle directly ahead. When the ship struck the berg, it didn't hit head-on. Instead, the ice scraped along the side, tearing a series of gashes below the waterline. The unsinkable ship's math relied on surviving 4 flooded compartments. The Iceberg opened 5. As the bow filled and pulled the nose down, water spilled over the internal bulkheads, which didn't reach the ceiling, into the next compartments like an ice cube tray. The evacuation was marked by confusion. Because the crew had never held a boat drill, and many passengers didn't believe the ship could sink, the first lifeboats were lowered with dozens of empty seats. By 2:20 a.m., the stern of the ship was lifted high into the air. The massive weight of the engines and boilers eventually caused the hull to break apart before the remains plunged to the ocean floor. Over 1,500 people died in the disaster. It remains one of the largest peacetime maritime losses in history, proving that engineering alone could not guarantee safety. When news reached the shore, the shock was immediate. In London and New York, the public struggled to reconcile the reports of the sinking with the previous claims of the ship's invincibility. The wreck remained lost for 73 years. In 1985, it was finally located 3,800 meters below the surface, where it rests in 2 separate pieces on the Atlantic seabed. The Titanic stands as a physical lesson in the limits of technology. It is a reminder that no matter how advanced the design, human error and the forces of nature remain variables that cannot be fully engineered away.